Hello, welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios, and as you can see, David is not with us today. So he's on vacation this week. Happy President's Day to all of those who celebrate the date in the US. For those who are new to this space or to us, we are a firm that specializes in the business of consulting. And so we grow small consulting firms. We help them find a balance to have delightful practices. We work with leaders who are solo practitioners all the way to $50-60 million a year boutiques. So that's a little bit of context. What is happening today is we're answering your questions. We welcome to put questions in the comments. I'll answer them live if I can, and if not, we'll tackle them next Monday. We encourage you to post questions, to put comments, your opinions, and to add your experience to what we're doing today. And thank you, Tony, for getting us started this morning. So without much ado, let's jump into Tony's question. Tony, you're asking, what are some best practices to tell the client you're using an OpenAI Chat GPT Plus, no enterprise license that protects data? I think you got to be transparent, Tony. And a way to address it is say, look, these are the advantages and why you're incorporating the use of OpenAI into your engagement. And this is the trade-off, right, in the privacy of data protection. And see whether your client agrees to that or not. If not, you may have to, over time, build an alternative with other AI platforms that allow for more data restriction. But be transparent and be direct. Say, look, these are the choices we traditionally make. This is how we would approach it. Here's the trade-off. Are you comfortable with that? Under which context are you comfortable with that? Let me know if that helps Tony answer your question. All right. Deidre, can you pull in another question that we had received during the week for us? Thank you. Okay, this question is from Chris. My team isn't getting 2024 internal initiatives done. How much of their time should be allocated to internal initiative? Does it vary by role? Thank you, Chris. So I understand you have a plan for 2024, good thinking, right? And you have your strategies lined up for the year, and your team, unsurprisingly, we see this quite a bit in boutique firms. It's struggling to get a pace going and getting them done. To your question, should time be allocated? Yes. How much? Depends on your firm design. Almost everyone in a boutique firm, meaning there's more than one person involved in delivery, should have some time earmarked for internal projects. And what are internal projects? Those that you've set up in your 2024 initiatives. So some parameters for you to think about. Think at the most junior level, about 5% of their time should be earmarked for internal projects and for helping the firm grow. At the most senior level, you should be looking at 20% of your time as leader of the firm, right? Devoted to putting in place processes, practices, new initiatives that will help your firm grow. Include also initiatives in the way you assess performance. We have found that this is a key differentiator between consulting firms that get traction with their initiatives and where the initiatives form part of a whole versus consulting firms that view the initiative as a nice to have if we have time element. A secure way to do that is to include them in the way you assess performance. So there's one more element you're looking at, whether you're looking at a junior consultant's performance or at a senior leader's performance. How and what they're supposed to be doing should include elements of your internal initiatives. All right, Chris, let us know how far along that gets you, and we're happy to chat more if needed. Thank you, Frank, for your question. You're asking, what are the pros and cons of international consulting? Okay, Frank, so I'm going to make an assumption. Correct me if my assumption is wrong. I understand you're asking of providing services to a client that it's in a different country than you are based out of. So pros and cons, right? Pros could be they may be your perfect client. You get more engagements, you have a wider footprint. And the cons are in an area where we're not expert, which most really relates to taxation and how employment laws work in that country, contracting laws, and whether you require licenses or not. By now, you know we're not the best folks to ask all of these things, and go to the experts for whether licensing is required and what are the tax implications. Another element to assess is how does an international location match your network? So are you having a one-time engagement because you're following a client, or you have a prospect that you have a deep relationship with that allows you to actually leverage, your knowledge, your expertise, and what you have? In that case, follow your client. Are you looking to incur and expand in that country over time? Start by following your network. So look at your network and see whether how your network is positioned is a pro or is a con. And it would depend on what you're looking to do over time as well. Frank, let me know if I understood your question correctly, and hopefully you got what you needed. All right, Deidre, share with us another question, please, that was submitted this week. This question is from Peter. Peter says, would it make sense to have a researcher do a roundup of alumni from my business school working at companies that are in my target market, and then doing cold outreach to them to build out my network, my core network, what we call our network core? Thank you, Peter. All right. That's an interesting idea. Any point of affiliation, connection, warms up what otherwise would be a cold outreach by way of jumpstarting trust and jumpstarting likability, right? We tend to like folks we think we know, and having that connection in common tells us, okay, we know something about this person, right? They attended this university, they were part of this program, we know what their training looked like. That's an important element that you can actually leverage. The alumni connection is not limited to schools. It can also be leveraged for companies. So off the top of my head, Procter & Gamble, P&G, comes to mind as a company that has a strong alumni network. Some MBBs come to mind also as having strong alumni network. And I'm sure there are many others that I'm leaving out of the equation. Leverage those connections as well in a plan like this. Don't be limited to, say, the Alumni Association of your university or of your higher education degrees, anything like that. So in short, yes, go for it. If you're willing to view it as a long-term approach to building your network core. If you have the expectation that this will pay off quickly, it's not the best strategy. However, if you have time, you say, I'm going to start warming up and creating a potential network out of my alumni association, then go for it. Also go for it if it's not too costly to do the research. All right. Thank you for the question. Let's try and do one more. Deidre, can you please share the next question that was submitted? Thank you. Bill said, as I reach out to more people for business development and submit more proposals, I'm also facing more rejection. How do you handle this? Sorry, it's tough to hear no and to hear several no's in a row. Now, how do you face rejection, or how do you deal with rejection? depends on how much rejection you're actually getting, and not how much rejection you feel you're getting, but what do the numbers tell you? So if most uh, of every proposal is a rejection, then you have a problem, right? If most of your warm business development outreach gets either silence or a no, I'm okay, it's not the right time for me to have a conversation with you, then you have a problem. So I would look at, do you have successes? And do you have a large enough sample that you can come to a conclusion, right? If you submitted 3 proposals in the last 12 months and all were no's, then perhaps you're not submitting enough proposals, right? You're not getting to the point where you submit enough proposals. If you come to the conclusion that you actually have a problem, then we need to go back to the fundamentals. Are you targeting the right people? Is this the right market where you can demonstrate expertise and you have a right to win? Are you addressing the right problem? And perhaps even more importantly, are you addressing all of this in a right side up approach that it's all about your prospects and not about you? So let's try and kind of look back at what makes this rejection, which is tough to deal with. And we all empathize because it's part of our business, right? To deal with a certain amount of no's. And let's determine whether you have a problem or you're just going through a tough, a tough string of several no's in a sequence, but in the overall, it may not reflect a problem. All right. So go back, look at your data, and do some analysis in the top. All right. We also have a question in the comments. Thank you so much. I cannot see your name, but we see your question. You're asking, the firm is getting to the point where you as the leader cannot be involved in each internal project. It is a very interesting point to be in. Looking to get someone to oversee the day-to-day so that you can focus on outreach, proposal writing, visibility efforts. Any suggestions on what this role will typically include? Okay, depending on how your firm is structured, you're either looking more at an operations manager or perhaps preferably as somebody who can lead the delivery, that has enough content expertise, that knows your methodologies and knows your approach, and you can delegate more and more elements of delivery so that you can be out of it. It's a great transition to be in. It's a very important one in the path of consulting firm growth. And we're looking at maybe being a step 4 or what we call a step 4, step 5 firm. And David wrote an article about it. It's an interesting juncture because in looking at your model or what the role should include, you practically need to place yourself, say, 2-3 years down the road. And what would you want your delivery model to look like in terms of consultants and resources for your firm? Once you have that picture, that it's 2-3 years down the road, then you walk it backwards to where you are today. That will tell you a lot of whether you want somebody who leads, say, in the role of an operations manager, or whether you want somebody who is actually leading, say, delivery teams. 2 very different sets of skills and 2 very different elements of making that role a success. All right. And with that, we are at the 14-minute mark. So let's start wrapping up for today. Deidre, you can help me by putting the prompts in there. The first request that we have of you is that if you haven't already, including your calendars for whatever your local time zone is at the equivalent of 12:15 Eastern, the link for Monday Live. It will take you to the LinkedIn Live that we're doing every week, and it will show you the recording of the one we just did if you go to it this afternoon. So put that on your calendars. The next request is that you connect with David and connect with me via LinkedIn. If you haven't done so already, our handles are somewhere at the bottom. Next request is that you subscribe to David's articles. Again, you're in for a treat. If you haven't already subscribed, they're funny, they're insightful, and they're very practical. And last request is that you bring a friend and you ask them to join us on Monday if you feel this will add value to them and to their consulting firm. Because consulting, it's really not about us, it's about our clients. And we're to the service of our clients. And through that, we can achieve fulfillment for them and fulfillment for us. So keep that in mind as you go through this week. We're looking forward to seeing you next week. Thank you for joining us.